Inside California's deadliest prison. The brutal truth about San Quentin's death row. Before we go any deeper into this dark story, hit that subscribe button, drop a comment, and tell us where you're watching from. Like the video if you enjoy real crime investigations, and brace yourself, because this one goes places most people never dare to look. The scream echoed off the concrete walls before anyone could react. Officers sprinted down the narrow, dimly lit tier of San Quentin's East Block, boots pounding against the metal grates, flashlights slicing through the darkness. It was 3:14 a.m., and someone on death row had just triggered the emergency alarm, a sound that meant one thing: something catastrophic had happened. When the guards reached cell 57, they found a man slumped on the ground, his hands shaking, sweat pouring down his face. His cellmate lay motionless on the bunk above him, eyes open, staring at the ceiling as if frozen in terror. The scene didn't make sense. No weapon, no struggle, no noise reported before the scream. Just one inmate alive, trembling, and another gone. The surviving prisoner's name was Marcus Reed, a man known for being eerily silent, polite, and never involved in trouble. But now he was mumbling the same words over and over. Wasn't he supposed to die? Not like that. Not like that. Officers cuffed him and pulled him out, but Marcus didn't fight. He walked like someone who had already accepted the end. Within minutes, investigators swarmed the cell. One of them, Lieutenant Sarah Vance, had been working cases inside San Quentin for nearly a decade. She'd seen stabbings, riots, and deaths that made headlines across the country. But something about this felt different. Too clean, too quiet, too staged. She inspected the body. No wounds, no bruising, no blood. The medical examiner arrived shortly after and gave the first theory: sudden cardiac arrest. But Vance wasn't convinced. The dead man, Cameron Holt, was 28 years old and perfectly healthy during his last check-in. Something else was at play. She studied the walls, the bed frame, the vent above the toilet, the food tray left on the floor. Nothing. No contraband. No hidden wires. Not a trace of foul play. Yet the fear in Marcus's voice crackled in her head. He wasn't supposed to die. By sunrise, Marcus was placed in a temporary holding cage while investigators prepared for questioning. But before they could begin, a guard approached Vance, looking shaken. "Lieutenant, we just pulled security footage from the tier." "Okay," Vance said. And he swallowed. "You need to see it." They walked into the small control room where officers monitored dozens of grainy cameras. The footage from cell 57 loaded onto the screen. At first, everything looked normal, the two inmates lying in their bunks, still and quiet. Then, at exactly 3:12 a.m., Cameron Holt sat up abruptly, clutching his chest, gasping. Marcus jumped down from the top bunk, reaching for him, but not touching. Cameron convulsed once, violently, then froze. But that wasn't the disturbing part. The disturbing part was the shadow. A dark, human-shaped silhouette appeared briefly in the hallway outside the cell, a place no one was supposed to be at that hour. The figure stood motionless for 3 full seconds, then vanished. There was no record of any guard, any inmate movement, any staff on that tier at that time. Yet someone had been there. Vance felt her stomach drop. "Rewind that," she ordered. But when the footage replayed, the shadow was gone. Erased, as if it had never existed. Someone had tampered with evidence inside the most secure unit in California. And the only person who might know the truth was the trembling inmate whispering the same haunting sentence. Wasn't he supposed to die? Not like that. Vance looked at the blank monitor, her pulse rising. Whatever happened inside that cell was just the beginning. Marcus Reed sat in the cold interview room, wrists chained to the steel table, eyes locked on the floor. The fluorescent lights above flickered, humming with a low, unsettling buzz. Lieutenant Sarah Vance studied him from across the table, her notepad untouched. She didn't need notes yet. She needed the truth. "Marcus," she began calmly. "Cameron Holt died without a mark on him. Medical thinks it was cardiac arrest, but you and I both know that's not the whole story. So tell me what happened." Marcus didn't look up. His voice cracked. "You won't believe me. Try me." He swallowed hard, his fingers twitching against the cuffs. "They told him he would be next." "Who?" Vance pressed. "The ones who run this place," Marcus whispered. "Not the guards. Not the warden. The real ones." Vance felt a chill crawl up her spine. She'd heard inmates talk about ghost powers, Invisible authorities, secret groups controlling prison politics. Most of it nonsense. But Marcus wasn't ranting. He looked terrified. What did they want from Cameron? Marcus shifted, breathing uneven. He saw something. Something he shouldn't have. Before Vance could ask what that meant, a rapid knock came on the door. Officer Ruiz stepped inside, pale and breathless. "Lieutenant, you need to come with me. Now." Vance stood. "Stay here," she told Marcus. He didn't react. Ruiz led her down the long hallway toward the surveillance control room, the same place they reviewed footage hours earlier. Something felt off the moment she stepped inside. The air was tense. Officers stood frozen around a single monitor. "What's going on?" Vance asked. Ruiz pointed at the screen. The hallway leading to Marcus's holding cage flickered into view. At first glance, everything was normal. Empty corridor, locked gates, no movement. Then Vance saw it. A figure stood at the far end of the hallway. Motionless. Silent. Wearing a guard uniform, but with no name tag, no badge, no equipment belt. The uniform was wrong. Almost like a prototype, plain and unfinished. The figure didn't walk. It glided. "What the hell am I looking at?" Vance muttered. Ruiz shook his head. "No one on staff looks like that. And the gate at the end is locked. No key card used. No motion sensor triggered." The figure paused directly in front of Marcus's holding cage. Even through the grainy feed, its face looked wrong. Like a blur. A static smear. Marcus, sensing something, backed away from the bars, eyes wide, shaking violently. Then the screen went black. Not glitched. Not frozen. Cut. Someone had killed the feed. Vance's heart hammered in her chest. "Pull the live camera." An officer typed quickly, switching to the real-time feed. Marcus's holding cage appeared, empty. Completely empty. The gate was still locked. No sign of forced entry. No record of anyone opening it. Marcus Reed had vanished. Vance stepped back, struggling to process the impossible. "Lock down the entire unit," she ordered. "No one in or out. I want every camera checked, every hallway searched." Officers scattered, alarms blaring through the block. Red lights flashed overhead as steel doors slammed shut. The prison descended into chaos. Inside the mayhem, Vance replayed Marcus's words in her mind. They told him he would be next. Who were they? What did Cameron Holt see? And how could a man disappear from a locked cage under full surveillance? An officer radioed in frantically. "Lieutenant, you need to get to the yard. Now." "We found something." Vance sprinted through the corridor, adrenaline flooding her veins. When she reached the yard door, Ruiz met her, breathless. He held a folded piece of white paper. "We found this on the ground," he said, "in the exact center of the lower yard. No footprints around it. No tracks." He handed it to her. Vance opened the note with trembling fingers. Only 5 words were written inside. "Stop looking, or you're next." The prison yard fell silent after officers escorted Leon back to his cell. The whispers that spread through East Block carried a new tone now. Cautious, measured, almost resigned. Whatever he had hinted at during questioning left the staff uneasy and the inmates unusually quiet. San Quentin had always been a place of routine, but tonight, something in the air felt heavier. Lieutenant Morales reviewed the interview room footage again. There were no outbursts, no confessions, nothing dramatic. Just Leon's steady voice repeating the same message. "Look where the routine breaks. That's where the truth hides." It wasn't a threat. It wasn't even defiance. It sounded more like a man pointing to a loose thread no one had noticed. By midnight, the team gathered in the administrative wing. The concern wasn't about danger. It was about understanding whether a procedural oversight had allowed tension to build unnoticed. This was the part of San Quentin the public rarely saw. The internal reviews, the calm professionalism, the effort to keep a 170-year-old institution running safely. The officers traced the previous month's schedules, rotations, and daily logs. Nothing illegal, nothing dramatic, but one detail stood out. A new staff member had unintentionally shifted the timing of nightly checks by several minutes. It wasn't harmful, but in a place where men count seconds as a form of survival, that tiny change had echoed down the tier like a shockwave. Confusion grew, rumors started, and a minor misunderstanding almost spiraled into something larger. It wasn't crime. It wasn't conspiracy. It was simply the psychology of confinement, small changes creating big reactions. By morning, the warden addressed the tier directly. His tone was steady, reassuring, and corrective. Nothing is wrong. The schedule has been restored. Order remains in place. And just like that, the tension dissolved. Routine returned. The steel bars hummed back to stillness. Leon didn't say anything for the rest of the day. He simply sat on the edge of his bunk, staring at the faint blue glow of the hallway light. Maybe he hadn't intended to cause a stir. Maybe he simply wanted the officers to notice what he had noticed, that in a place defined by repetition, even one skipped beat changes the entire rhythm. San Quentin's death row has always been the subject of myths, tales of danger, chaos, and cinematic drama. But the truth is far more subtle. What truly shapes this place isn't spectacle, it's structure, order, routine. The careful balance between officers doing their jobs and inmates managing the psychological weight of time. Nothing explosive happened that night. No riot, no confrontation. Just a reminder that prisons, especially ones as historic as San Quentin, operate on precision. A few minutes' difference can send a wave across a building where every second is counted. The review ended, the schedule corrected, and life returned to its slow, predictable pace. Officers continued their rounds. Inmates settled back into their cells. And the world outside continued to talk about San Quentin, imagining chaos where there was only control. This is the part of the story most documentaries never show. The truth behind California's deadliest prison isn't in violence or spectacle. It's in the quiet moments where order is maintained, where small details matter, and where the real challenges come not from conflict, but from managing silence. And that concludes our deep dive into San Quentin's death row, the procedures, the pressure, and the unseen reality behind the headlines. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Remember to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more documentary-style stories just like this.